I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. So over the years, in my work with Eat Fit, our nonprofit restaurant initiative through Oshner Health, as we work with restaurants across the state. We have over 300 partners. We're working with these chefs, these restaurants to incorporate nutritious options onto menus. And one of the biggest hurdles that we have is, working with the chefs. And sometimes it's easy to fall back on salt and butter and sugar to make foods taste good. So what do they do to really bring out flavors of the dishes without using those things? And salt can be one of the hardest things. And so over the years, we've really worked, and a lot of the chefs they're so into using all these other things to add flavor. So it's not a hard thing for them at all to cut salt. It just kind of depends on kind of what their approach has been. But one of the things that, I've been lucky in my job is that we're the grateful recipient to be able to taste and try a lot of these dishes over the years. And the common thread is that as the chefs are dialing back the salt, they're still pumping in tons of flavor with all types of things, everything from different vinegars or infused oils to different herbs and spices. And it's also really cool. There's a double benefit that a lot of these foods that they're adding in to replace the salt actually are adding in not just that they have no salt and they're adding flavor, but they're actually adding in this powerful punch of nutrition as well, these other health benefits. And so today we're talking about 3 spices in particular that we can easily add into our diet that have true science-backed health benefits. Now, there's a lot of things that you'll read or, there's health benefits of all these different herbs, all these different spices. But when you look at how much do you really have to consume, it's a lot. And how much sage or oregano are we really putting into our diet on a regular basis? So sometimes the amounts that we would have to consume of different herbs or spices can really be a lot. But these 3 that we're talking about today, ginger, cinnamon, and turmeric, these are 3 that in pretty modest amounts that we would normally add to our foods, we can get these into our diets. So think about it like this. You're adding flavor, tons of flavor to your foods with these spices that also have the side benefit of having a whole host of other health benefits for you. So some background information, and you may know this, but a lot of people kind of use the terms herbs and spices interchangeably, but technically spices are things that are from the bark, the buds, the roots, the seeds, the stems. So those things are used to make spices. And if you think about the things that we're talking about today, cinnamon, ginger, turmeric, these are from the bark or the roots of these. Herbs are more the leaves of plants. So when you think about herbs, that's where it's our rosemary, our basil, the oregano, the thyme. That's more the leafy part of the plants. So spices technically are the bark, the buds, the roots, the seeds, the stems. So things are, less structured these days though. So if you call it a herb or a spice, no one's probably going to correct you. And a lot of times if it's something that's just a dried plant product of any type that seasons and enhances your dish, then you're going to be good to go with calling it a spice. Or even if you said a herb, it's fine. But just know that when the pros say herbs, they're talking about that fresh leafy part. When they're talking about the spices, they're talking about that way we said. These, herbs and spices, these are natural ingredients that have been used for thousands of years to spice up our foods. And a lot of them, as we said, can add this dose of antioxidants to our day. They can also help protect us from a lot of modern day diseases that we'll talk about, things that are, inflammation, blood sugar issues, nausea from maybe different medical treatments. And there's more than 100 spices that are really common in cooking in the US and around the world. And even within that, there's a lot of variations of different types of these spices. So you'll hear, as we're talking about cinnamon, there's multiple types of cinnamon, but there's probably more than 100 that are still really common. And some have been studied a lot for their therapeutic properties, others not as much. But we'll be talking about these three that really have a good bit of science behind us. And you don't have to go hunting for these exotic ingredients because you can find these just at your local market. So here's a couple of tips also when it comes to spices. They are just like anything. Like if you did cracked pepper, like peppercorns, the best way to do cracked pepper is with a pepper grinder and, use the whole peppercorns, put it in your pepper grinder and like grind it right then when you're going to have it. Because of the natural oils in there, they'll lose their flavor over time. So if you have black pepper that's already ground, the longer it sits there, the more it loses that flavor. So if you have the peppercorns in your pepper grinder and you're grinding it right at that point that you're about to have it, it's going to have the most flavor. Spices are exactly the same. So if they're sitting in your pantry on the shelf for months or years, they're going to lose a good bit of their flavor over time. So ideally, buy them in small quantities that you're going to use relatively quickly in the coming months within the year. Store them in glass bottles when possible, but you want to keep them out of the heat and out of the light. So heat and light can dry them out faster. So if you've been keeping them right on your stovetop, that they're like right near the oven, that's probably not the best place because they're probably in the light and they're definitely near the heat, which is going to cause them to lose that flavor more quickly. So in the pantry, in the cabinet, somewhere that is out of the sun, away from the heat, ideally storing them in glass containers and buying them in small enough batches that you can then use them pretty quickly. Buying like the spice rack that is like a pre-filled spice rack, probably not the best idea because you're probably not going to use a lot of the ones in there. So really going with the ones that are more your favorites or these that we'll be talking about that you're trying to get more of into your diet, so that you don't have just so many different spices that are kind of sitting there not being used and really just drying out. So the first one we'll talk about, we've got the three. We're going to talk about ginger, cinnamon, and turmeric. Let's talk about ginger first. This is one that I incorporate daily. I have ginger first thing every morning. I actually do it in the form of juiced ginger. So here in New Orleans, we have a juice place. They do fresh pressed, green juices and stuff like that. But I buy ginger juice from them by the quart. And so I freeze it into ice cubes. And basically each ice cube is between about 1 and 2 ounces. And that way each morning I have that ginger juice. It's been fresh pressed. Obviously I'm freezing it to kind of make it into the smaller amounts. But I put that in hot water each morning with a tea that has different types of cinnamon and all types of other. Actually, I do the cinnamon tea with that and then put that in the ginger. So I do get the cinnamon as well in the morning. But it's a cinnamon and chili type of a tea. It's an herbal tea. And put that with the ginger. So I'm getting that ginger juice first thing in the morning. But we can also, of course, we'll talk about a whole bunch of ways that we can add ginger to our diet. But here's why. There's a bunch of reasons. So we'll first talk about the health benefits. So I'm adding ginger into my diet. My primary reason for this is the natural anti-inflammatory effects of ginger. So there's a compound in ginger called gingerol, and it's the main active compound in ginger. It's actually related to capsaicin. Capsaicin is the compound in peppers that gives them their spiciness. And gingerol is kind of a relative. It's related to capsaicin. And again, that's the active component of ginger. But it is what's responsible for the natural anti-inflammatory effects of ginger. And reducing inflammation can help with muscle pain, soreness, which are, I always have, joint pain. I've mentioned that before on this podcast, just years of running and not really listening to my body and having just some overuse things that are lingering. I don't run anymore, but I still have those. So I'm always looking for any little extra edge that I can have for inflammation. So I add that ginger first thing in the morning before my morning cup of coffee. I'm putting that in there. So other benefits of ginger. Number one, anti-inflammation. Number 2 is better blood sugar control. So ginger is linked to an improvement in our blood sugar levels, including fasting blood glucose, also hemoglobin A1C, which is a marker of long-term glucose control. So if someone is mindful of blood sugars or trying to manage something like type 2 diabetes or looking for ways to keep blood sugar and insulin levels stable, ginger is good for that as well. So number 1, inflammation. Number 2, blood sugar control. Number 3, it actually has an antibacterial effect. And so ginger can help to inhibit the growth of certain types of bacteria. It's also an effective nausea treatment for a lot of people. So it can be, if you're experiencing nausea from seasickness or morning sickness or related to things like chemotherapy treatments, ginger may be helpful. And then finally, it may improve symptoms of PMS. So those are 5 science-backed health benefits of ginger. As I said, the main reason I'm adding it in is that anti-inflammation. Plus, I just really like the way that it tastes. So having it first thing in the morning for me, I enjoy it. So when we look at how much ginger, what do we need to put into our diets? Typical dosage that shows these benefits that we just talked about, it varies, but on average, it's about 1 to 1.5 grams daily. So when we look at a teaspoon of ground ginger, so if you're going to take fresh ginger root and grind it up, you can also buy ground ginger. You can also buy pickled ginger that is not very salty. The solution it's in is going to have pulled some of the benefits from ginger out of it, but you'll still be getting a lot of it. But basically, a teaspoon of ground ginger has just over 1.5 grams, which is basically what would be considered our typical supplement dosage. So we would say 1 to 1.5 grams daily, or what would be considered a teaspoon of ginger. You can do half a teaspoon twice daily if it's in cooking or in foods. You could do juiced ginger, as I mentioned. One thing to be cautious of, though, is that ginger can interact with anticoagulant medications. This means that it can decrease clotting. It might also increase risk of bleeding for someone who is on certain medications for that. So be mindful of that. But, and also, as always, we'll say this with all supplements. And if you're adding in a very strategic way or taking supplemental doses of any of these that we're talking about, always talk with your physician and dietitian before adding anything new into a supplement protocol or before making significant changes to your diet. So with that being said, if all's a go on the green light of adding more ginger, some of my favorite things, I mentioned juiced ginger. I freeze it into those cubes to make it last, so that it's because it isn't pasteurized, so it's highly perishable. So I'm not going to keep that quart of ginger juice in the fridge; it would go bad. But freezing it into the ice cubes makes it last, and I can pull one out every morning, and it lasts me for weeks. Ginger tea. So all you do is you do fresh ginger, get a piece of ginger root about the size of your thumb, peel it, and then either grate it or thinly slice it, steep it in some boiling water for 10 to 15 minutes. You've got your ginger tea. I will link to a recipe for candied ginger. Oh my gosh, it's delicious. It's actually, if you've seen candied ginger in the store, it's so much sugar. A handful of that would be more than a day's worth of added sugar, like 24 grams of added sugar. The candied ginger, it's really easy to make at home. And you use Swerve. So y'all have heard us talk about Swerve before. It's a natural plant-based sweetener, 0 glycemic index, 0 effect on blood sugar, anything. But you basically take some Swerve and water and you on a little saucepan, and then your sliced ginger, and you simmer it there for about 20 minutes, and then you strain the ginger out of it. And then you can toss it with a little bit of the granular Swerve, and it makes it like a candied ginger. So we use that in our Eat Fit cookbook. It is a garnish to one of our mocktails/cocktails. And I also just make it and keep it in the fridge just so it stays fresher. But I'll do that and kind of just have that as a candied ginger around. So you can juice ginger. You could juice it yourself, or you can buy it juiced from a place like Green Fork, like I was mentioning. You can do ginger tea. You could do candied ginger, which is really simple. And again, I'll link to the recipe in our episode notes. I mentioned pickled ginger earlier. So kind of in the in different types of the different grocery stores. I see it mostly at Whole Foods, but I haven't looked at a lot of the others, but I haven't seen it at most traditional grocery stores. But pickled ginger, where it's the vinegar, but it doesn't have a whole lot of salt added, is what I would say to go with more there. Also, if you're looking at a sushi restaurant, going with just the white ginger, not where it looks pink and it has different dyes and stuff in it. So keeping it as natural possible, but you'll still get some of the benefits from pickled ginger. Grating it or just pureeing it, putting it into your stir fries or soups or sauces. Those ginger juice cubes I talked about, I add mine into a hot tea in the morning. You could also put that cube into smoothies and add ginger into whatever kind of protein drinks or smoothies. So there's a lot of different ways that we can add ginger into our diet to get those health benefits. So again, anti-inflammation, better blood sugar control, the natural antibacterial, improves symptoms of PMS and can help with nausea, whether it's seasickness, motion sickness, chemotherapy treatment. So lots of different reasons why we might choose to add ginger into our diet. And then again, lots of different ways that we can. I'd like to take a minute to talk about Billy, sponsor of this week's podcast and an Allure Best of Beauty winner. Billy has recreated everyday essentials by delivering premium razors and high-performing body care directly to you. Go to mybilly.com to get their starter kit for just $9. That includes their award-winning razor, 2 refill blades, and a magnetic holder that keeps your razor safe and dry between uses. And it's not just razors. Billy also has really cool skincare products like lip balm, dry shampoo, face wipes. I love Billy's products, and you will too. They leave our skin feeling so soft. And to express a little love for our show, go to mybilly.com/fueled. It's a small way that you can support us while also getting the best razor you'll ever own. It's just $9 to get your starter kit plus free shipping always. Go to mybilly.com/fueled. That's mybillie.com/fueled. So moving on from ginger to cinnamon. This is not one, I like it, but it's not one that I add so consistently. I do have the herbal tea in the morning that I talked about that does have cinnamon in there. And also we'll talk about this, the main benefit of cinnamon that you've probably heard about or read about is to enhance blood sugar control. So we do get some of that benefit from ginger as well. And cinnamon has that benefit. Cinnamon, actually, I kind of look at it as a double benefit for people who are dealing with high blood sugar, because not only does research show us that cinnamon can help to lower blood sugar levels in people with type 2 diabetes, but cinnamon also helps to give food the perception of sweetness, but without adding any sugar at all. So when we look at blood sugar control, there's been, many different clinical trials that have looked at cinnamon for type 2 diabetes. Some of them have found really significant benefits. Others have found kind of mixed benefits. For those where there does seem to be a benefit, the supplemental dosage is between 120 milligrams up to 6 grams daily, which would be the same as 6,000 milligrams. So a wide range there, but 6 grams daily of cinnamon is the equivalent of about 2 rounded teaspoons of cinnamon. And the studies that have shown benefit of this have looked at essentially what would be the equivalent of 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, just spread throughout the day or taken in supplement form. But 2 teaspoons, 2 rounded teaspoons, or the equivalent of up to 6 grams, 4 weeks to 18 weeks has been shown to reduce fasting blood glucose levels by an average of 25 points. Also, kind of side benefit, slightly improving total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and triglycerides as well. So there is some potential benefit there. You may or may not experience it, but I would kind of file it under, if you are especially dealing with type 2 diabetes, I would file this under every little bit helps. Now, when it comes to cinnamon, we think about cinnamon, it comes from the bark of the cinnamon tree. It's used in everything. I mean, you can use it, and we're talking about that, 2 teaspoons daily. You can put it in smoothies. You could put it in things like soups and stews and chilies. Of course, pumpkin spice lattes come to mind whenever people are doing that. You can do your own low sugar version, of course, would be our preference versus the sugary ones in coffee shops. So when it comes to cinnamon, there's two main types of cinnamon. One is cassia cinnamon. The other is Ceylon cinnamon. Both of them are harvested in sheets. They're both part of the bark of trees belonging to the cinnamon family. But they're two very different products, and they are different in the way they're harvested. But they're also different in their taste, their smell, and then also their chemical properties and found inside of them and their health benefits. So cassia cinnamon is what has been shown in studies to have that potential benefit on blood sugar control. So that is specifically from the cassia cinnamon. Now, a caution though is that cassia cinnamon, yes, it may help to lower blood glucose levels. So if you are taking medications for type 2 diabetes and you do strategically and specifically add in cinnamon, you'll definitely need to monitor blood sugar so that you don't experience a low blood sugar reaction. You may need to adjust dosages of those diabetes medications. The other thing to be aware of is that cassia cinnamon can also contain high levels of a compound called coumarin, which can cause liver toxicity in animal studies. In humans, we would have to have high amounts of it. It's not very common, but it is something to be aware of. Also to be aware of that if someone has liver disease, then we would want to avoid specifically incorporating large amounts of cassia cinnamon. Ceylon cinnamon is also not quite so strong. It's much more mild. People who love it really love it, and they will go out of their way specifically to find and buy this. A lot of people will call it true cinnamon. They're both real cinnamon. One is, one's not fake or they're both true cinnamon. But the Ceylon cinnamon, for the pros, the chefs, the people who are really into it, this is what they consider the good stuff. It's more expensive. It's harder to find at a standard grocery store. The main difference is, again, it doesn't have the compound in there that can be potentially harmful to our liver in high amounts. It also doesn't have the same potential health benefits for type 2 diabetes, but the flavor, the aroma, they're very mild, they're very delicate. So it still reads as cinnamon, but it's it's much more subtle, almost like a little bit of a floral effect. And the sheets of it, it looks different. So the sheets are typically hand rolled. They're in much finer, thinner layers than the traditional thicker layers of the cassia cinnamon. So they are both true cinnamon. Again, from a health benefits, the cassia cinnamon, which is what we consider regular cinnamon in the grocery store, that's where you're going to get the benefits from the type 2 diabetes. But for those who are just looking for the specific flavor to add to food, that delicate, that mild flavor of cinnamon, the Ceylon cinnamon is kind of what the chefs reach for in the pros. But when we're talking about all the other stuff about the benefits of cinnamon, that's just the regular stuff. And again, studies that have shown effectiveness are using up to 6 grams a day, which is basically 2 rounded teaspoons of cinnamon. So you can take it in supplement form. You can add it into foods. You could put it into smoothies. There's just a lot of different ways that we could have it. But again, if you are taking medications for type 2 diabetes, be mindful that this can affect that and you may need to adjust dosages. And if you do have any liver issues at all, I would not specifically and purposely add in large amounts of cinnamon, and then always dividing it throughout the day. So we don't want to just do 2 heaping teaspoons of cinnamon at once. And we certainly don't want to just do it by the spoonful. We would want to put it, stir it into a hot tea, stir it into your smoothie, have it kind of in divided doses throughout the day. So that's ginger, that's cinnamon. And then the third is turmeric. So turmeric, whereas ginger is inflammation. Ginger can also help with blood sugar control. Cinnamon, largely, the potential benefit there would be blood sugar control. Turmeric is highly recognized as one more way to help combat inflammation. So we know it as that spice. It's that bright yellow-orange root that is very flavorful. It's very aromatic, and it adds that vivid yellow color to dishes whenever we cook with it. So research shows us that turmeric may help reduce inflammation, full body inflammation, but we also look at specifically it may help to reduce inflammation in the brain, which has been linked to a reduction in risk of Alzheimer's and depression. So it's been small studies that are looking at that, but looking at slight benefit of people who take supplemental turmeric. And actually, if you see curcumin is the active component of turmeric. So that is typically what you'll see when you're buying turmeric in supplemental form. It will be curcumin will be what's actually on the list. So because of it's, and this is also one that I take on a regular basis. So I take turmeric as part of just my normal supplement routine every day. And again, the reason I'm taking it is specifically for its anti-inflammatory potential. And because of its anti-inflammatory potential, it can also be helpful at reducing pain, like joint pain and swelling for people with arthritis. So taking turmeric extract or curcumin, 500 milligrams 2 to 4 times daily for 4 to 6 weeks. And that has actually been shown to be comparable to taking ibuprofen, 400 milligrams 2 to 3 times daily. So looking at, okay, well, this is something that is science-backed. It does have evidence showing. Is it beneficial for everyone? No. But if you're consistent with it, that's the other thing too. We can't take it haphazardly. Like, let me take it sometimes, but not really being consistent. If you want to see, are you really feeling a benefit with any of these? We have to be very consistent with it. There was a study by Johns Hopkins that found that there's potential anti-cancer properties of turmeric as well, specifically a combination of curcumin with a chemotherapy drug was more effective at shrinking drug-resistant tumors than just chemotherapy alone. So a lot of this is just like the tip of the iceberg on research that has been started on not just turmeric, but really all spices, all supplements. So are any of these guarantees? Absolutely not. But when we look at what is the potential harm versus the potential benefit, we can file these kind of under the every little bit helps. So getting more into our diet is easy. You can use turmeric as a spice, using it as a rub on different vegetables or meats. I like to put it into, if you're doing like a chicken salad or a salmon salad, I like to use Greek yogurt instead of mayonnaise, but then add a lot of the turmeric. So we're getting that kind of curry flavor in there. You can use it in curries with coconut milk or veggies. There's also something called golden milk. There's a bunch of different recipes, but we can link to one that is specifically, you can do your milk of choice. I like to do it with unsweetened coconut milk, but it's turmeric, milk of choice, ginger, and pepper. And this is what's kind of a blend of something that's called golden milk. We had the founder of Iconic, which is a protein drink, and they have a drink, a protein drink, a ready to drink protein drink that was originally called golden milk. Now it just tells us what's in it, but you can make it yourself with your milk of choice, and you can do all different variations of it. You could do something like that golden milk that I'll link the recipe to, and you could add protein to it. Protein powder or Greek yogurt. You could add ice, make it a smoothie. I mean, you don't have to just do it as this hot kind of milky beverage. You could do it in a whole bunch of different ways. So there's a lot of ways that we can get the turmeric into our diet. Most studies are using 1 to 2 grams daily. A teaspoon is about 3 grams. So we're not talking about huge amounts of it. So if you did the equivalent of half a teaspoon daily in something like that golden milk, or put it into the dishes that you're preparing, you can easily get it. Incorporating pepper, it can be white or black pepper, but that increases our body's absorption of turmeric. So having pepper along with it is going to make it more effective for our bodies to actually absorb and use that turmeric. So you'll see supplements will have a pepper compound. It'll be listed on the ingredients. And the reason they're adding that in there is to help with absorption. But as you're doing things like golden milk or cooking with it, you can just add that pepper as well. So similar to the others that we talked about with like ginger, supplementing with turmeric can interfere with certain medications like blood thinners or diabetes medications. It also does have antiplatelet effects. And so similarly, it can also increase risk of bleeding or bruising, especially in people who are taking anticoagulant medications. So definitely be mindful of that. And as we said, just with anything, if you are considering adding any of these, ginger or turmeric or cinnamon specifically and strategically into your diet on that very consistent and regular basis, number one, that's what we need to do in order to determine, is this helping you? If you just add it a little here, a little there, a couple of times a week, you think about doing it, you remember to do it, that's not consistent enough to know, is it really having a benefit? So if you are being very consistent and strategic in adding this into your diet, then you'll be able to see, am I seeing the benefits? But especially if you're taking different medications, if you have any type of health conditions at all, we always want to talk with your physician or pharmacist, dietitian about this. Make sure that are there any medications you're taking that could interact with this? Which of these supplements or which of these spices, either in high amounts or in supplement form, are right for you? How much of these are going to be right for you? So this is, I wanted to share this with y'all, expose y'all to it. These are things, 2 of these 3 I add in every single day with the ginger and also with turmeric. I have that in a juice, a vegetable juice form that I do every day. It has turmeric juiced into it. Ginger, I'm getting in that tea. So actually all 3 of these I'm getting in some form consistently daily. Not quite the level of cinnamon that I get with ginger and turmeric, but still incorporating these on that very regular basis. These are things that I find benefit in. I find enough benefit that I choose to add them daily into my diet. So I wanted to be able to share these with you guys, think about it. And kind of thinking about, we don't have to add every single thing into our diets that seems like it's got some benefit. But if you are looking at ways to combat inflammation, then I would look at, okay, how can I get more ginger in? How can I get more turmeric in? Is it going to be in supplemental form or juice form? Am I going to add it to cooking? I'm going to add it to smoothies. What does this look like for me? And then if you are adding this in, talk with your doctor, talk with your dietitian. If you're taking certain medications, your pharmacist can be a great resource to help know if there's going to be any interactions there. Regardless of the health benefits, also keeping in mind that when we add these to our foods, we're spicing it up. We're adding that flavor to our foods. We're making our already healthy meals even more delicious, even more interesting. So they, health benefits aside, adding these spices can just be a really easy way to get us out of that rut of like same old when it comes to flavors, and making our foods enjoyable, interesting, keeping that variety in there is also going to be key for keeping us in these healthy habits consistently for the long term. So as always, let me know what you think. Let me know how these go. As you incorporate some of these into your own life, I would love to hear about it. I'd love to hear if there are certain benefits that you're feeling, if you're feeling any differences, also how you chose to do it and what made it easy for you to incorporate them into your diet and to stay consistent with it. So always share with me. I'd love to hear that feedback from you guys. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.